Well, I don't know about you, but I could use something a little more tasteful after the last book, and a little better known. Knott's Berry Farm Cookbook, today. One peculiarity I should point out right now is that this is the 11th printing of this book from 1997. But most of the references and pictures are from 1976. So unintentionally we are going again back in the 70s, which shows in both some of the pictures and in some of the illustrations. But at least they tried. Now looking at this picture, this does bring back some memories, because I do remember seeing a fair number of these jams and syrups in store shelves. Maybe not the light stuff for their fruit salad, but all the stuff over here, yeah, I remember seeing it. Not so much today, but then again, that's kind of market share for you. Okay, so we're going to try to make this as fast as possible. Now, skipping ahead here, I realize that we're going to be missing a couple things, but nothing you can't find yourself. Anyway, we're going to get to the fried chicken recipe, which is surprisingly simple. Just cut up fried chickens in unbleached flour. No seasoning, no anything. It's very basic, but it does work if you're just starting out frying chicken. A couple interesting things here. First, we have a picture of what the ghost town used to look like. I haven't been there in a very long time, so it's hard to say what it looks like now, if anything. But we also have a recipe for the boysenberry pie from Mrs. Knott herself. Whether or not this is actually her recipe or not is hard to say, but at least you have a recipe for it. And here, actually getting to the old West Ghost Town itself, we have an example of some of the recipes that they've decided to feature in this book. Two of the salads, that being Silver Dollar Cucumber Salad and Russian River Eggs. Yeah, all this is just for boiled eggs, so figure that one out. Then we have pork tenderloin, rancher's marinated chicken livers, and branding iron meatballs. If any of that makes sense to you, you're way ahead of me. And for the Russian River Eggs and the accompanying calico carrots, here are the recipe for those. Yes, they did have a log ride back then. Again, I just going by the pictures here, my memory is still very vague, and a sort of minecart ride, but I imagine it went very slowly. Next up we have some baking. Here we have whole wheat bread and whole wheat muffins, along with some interesting photography of what used to be in the park. For additional vegetables, we have a recipe here for something called Sad-Eye Joe's Squash. Sad-Eye Joe there, apparently in prison again. Next here we have goldmine mushrooms and calico can-can casserole, which is a mix of sweet potato and apple. Whether or not that counted as dessert or not is up to you, but I'm not too sure about the name for goldmine mushrooms. I wouldn't want to be looking for mushrooms in a gold mine. I wouldn't want to be looking for mushrooms in the forest, especially considering how problematic that can be. Next up, for something it even admits is unusual, we have chicken a la boysenberry, which is chicken breasts and livers cooked with these items and a 2/3 cup of boysenberry preserves. I haven't tried it, so I can't really comment on it, but it is something worth noting. Here we have some additional photography from back in the day, along with a couple more recipes for beef fondue, which is basically just oil poached beef, so that's not as bad as it sounds, and Butterfield stage spare ribs, using 2 of Knott's Berry's products. Not that that's all that surprising. Going on to the next section of Fiesta Village. So, yeah, they did that. I imagine this was one of the first sections to go when they did remodeling, because I don't imagine this would fly today. Hell, it probably wasn't even flying back in '98. They just got away with it. Now, what's interesting is that it seems to just follow some regular, logical Latin American recipes like adoblangas on the Mexican bouillabaisse, or something along those lines anyway. You have things like jicama and cheese salad. And yes, it is jicama. It has a J in it, but it's pronounced like H, and guacamole. There's even a recipe for red and green bell pepper pimentos, so that's basic, but it should work. Now, anyone who's watched South Park ever probably knows about the Casa Bonita and the sopapillas. Here's a recipe for some from the courtesy of Knott's Berry Farm. You're welcome. Next up, alongside some dancers, we have queso chili casserole. It's just green chili and cheddar cheese casserole. So it's not that egregious, but still doesn't seem like it may be much of a dish. The next section here, we have the Roaring 20s section of recipes. Taking, I would only imagine, would have to be a very idealized version of it. A lot of the hardship, especially in the late 20s, along with the Dust Bowl, on the insane amount of gang violence, are probably not covered in the original version. Starting off, we have a couple of soups here, a fruit soup and a chicken soup. Obviously, the fruit soup was served cold, because I don't imagine a fruit soup being served hot or even warm would be very interesting or good. Now here we have a couple recipes for bread, for basic herb bread, and because it is Knott's Berry Farm, boysenberry bread with streusel topping, which does sound delightful. Something perhaps a little less appetizing is the eggplant custard. Now, I've gone through this recipe, and I don't exactly know where they got the whole custard thing from, because it doesn't have eggs, it doesn't have milk, it doesn't have any of the traditional things you would have for custard. So this is something of an anomaly. Next up, along with a rather snazzy dressed jazz band here, we have a recipe for razzmatazz lamb, which ingredients includes orange marmalade and curry powder, which actually doesn't sound all that bad. Neither does the spicy pork chops, because the spices are nutmeg and cinnamon, so it's not exactly spicy in terms of hot, but it is spiced, so it does count. We started ending this book with the Independence Hall section. Yes, going from the 1920s to the 1700s is a bit of a leap, but no more of a leap than the ghost town, so I can work with it. Not much I can do anyway, because they had to work with it too. Starting us off, we have a recipe for salmon chowder, which, yeah, that's a chowder alright, and colonial cranberry and pear relish. Now, when we think of relish, depending on where you are, you might be thinking of like chutney or pickle relish, but relishes were a thing, and still can be, if you're going to put in the work. Next, we have red bite blueberry muffins and 13-star orange bread, which naturally includes orange marmalade. And it even has an orange butter icing, which also includes the orange marmalade. They're really going for the orange marmalade on that one. And before I forget, because I did before, another remoulade for shrimp. So apparently this was a big thing in the 70s. And as you probably noticed from the picture beforehand, here is the raspberry mousse, the things in the ramekins, and this is their pumpkin pie, which actually includes enough of the spices that you could probably do it yourself. So there we go. And just in case you thought you were left out, here is a metric conversion chart. Yay. Now, as I said before, getting a hold of this book isn't exactly a challenge, but it is going to be a standout amongst your books, especially your cookbooks, due to its antiquity of the subject matter. There might be newer versions available, but if you're looking for a past one, there are copies out there. You just have to do a touch of digging for it. It shouldn't be a problem. If you want it, it's out there waiting for you. I am the Deceptiwolf. This has been the Knott's Berry Farm Cookbook 11th printing, and I bid you good night.